King Kong. Towering over the streets below, terrifying everyone in sight, he's a ferocious giant. But off-screen, he doesn't look so tough.
Well, his teeth aren't in right now. Maybe we can put them in a minute.
We know him as a fearsome beast. But he's putty in the hands of his creator.
He's really pretty well capable of doing anything that a real gorilla could do.
What he's doing in special effects, the latest large format film from the producers of Nova, has got a whole new generation of fans thrilled. But can the big ape survive that certain sinking feeling one more time?
Cut, please.
Join us as Nova, the star of science television, presents an intimate look at the enduring star of a classic story. Behind the scenes with King Kong, in his biggest screen appearance ever. In the world of special effects, anything can happen.
I think the real challenge for us with this film is that we didn't want to just present a documentary about how special effects were made. We actually wanted to create some for the big screen. And so the thing that was very exciting was to plan the very shots that would really, I think, create a sensation of thrill for the audience.
Poor Kong meets his fate in the street below. This is a great shot for the large screen because it puts the audience right in that position, that point of view where you're hurtling from the top of a building right to the street below. And it was done by actually the entire shot is in miniature. Well, miniature, the buildings were about 20 feet in length, and I say length, not height, because the buildings were laying horizontally, so the camera could roll along the floor and move down in between them, one frame at a time. The camera would take a picture and then move slightly forward and take another picture, and therefore get you all the way down to the street. The set was comprised of quite a number of miniature buildings, all of them 1/24th scale.
If you look at the miniature and really studied it, you'd see a lot of levels of detail. First of all, there's the overall shape of the building, which goes back to its original design. Then there are little add-ons, things you only see at night that you never see during the day. Little radio towers, dish antennas that have little tiny lights on top of them, so they look like convincing miniatures on camera.
Most of it all has to be fabricated up by hand and requires a little bit of imagination to know what exactly to do. A lot of times we'll pirate kits of tanks, airplanes, things of that nature, and you know, this could be tank treads, but for our purposes here, it's an air conditioning vent. This is the window washer scaffolding, built completely from scratch. This was all nothing but a little pile of plastic bits, and a day and a half later we had a window washing unit.
There are a lot of subtle details that real objects have that we don't see in a model. For example, the lighting inside, how is it lit? What we did is we created little scenes that were photographs of real images of rooms that are actually put inside the buildings and backlit. That way, if you really walked up close to the building and looked inside, you would actually see a little miniature room in there.
The ones that you really can't define help us out more than the ones you can, because then it's
more color than anything else.
You get the idea that there's something going on, but your eye doesn't have really time to focus in and say, well, this is the bedroom, this is the kitchen, this is the den. So, this is where we start out in the area that you're going to focus on the most. Then as we go back from there, we just go to basically black and white Xeroxes that have some type of tones and textures. We've got a few various tones that just kind of fools your eye into thinking there's something there. This is really just way in the way back, and we fool you a little more with some gel, gives you a little color. And these basic black craft paper for the offices or rooms that have the lights out, and then to get really sneaky, we use basic manila folders all the way in the back. That's 6 cents a piece.
Very early on, before the miniature was even designed, we made mock-ups of what the miniature will look like. Just simple cardboard shapes that are cut out. And we say, okay, we think the camera will start here, and we'll see like this building, that building in the foreground, these buildings out in the background. And we just ran through an imaginary path. We pretended that Kong was up on a building. He was a stick figure that was there. So then we went ahead, built the miniatures, brought them on the stage, and we pretty much stuck to the basic path, but then we realized that actually some of the buildings that we were putting in the foreground really would look a lot better in the background, and we actually switched them around. So you make certain changes in your game plan, and you hope that you've made the right decisions, but you always have to be ready to change things, sometimes radically, to make the shot look better.
Every one of the physical details, from the shape of the skyline to the shine on the windows, adds to the illusion. In his current incarnation, Kong's moved west, terrorizing San Francisco from the top of a mythical skyscraper.
What we've done is we've designed the miniature, it's been built, it's been brought to the stage, we've been lighting it, and actually, as soon as we can do it, when we physically think we could bring the camera in, we start to move the camera through the set.
To shoot their first motion test, the effects team will need their star. He's off in his trailer, looking at wardrobe.
I have this in 2 different lengths. Of course, this is sort of the color of Son of Kong. But I think that to do stop motion in the IMAX format, which I have never done before, and I don't know of anyone else who's done puppet animation in this enormous film frame before, it puts an extra burden of care on the animator because you have such a high resolution of detail that if you make if you miss the point where the model should be moved by a slight amount, I suppose that the error may show up more. This is a picture of the inside structure of the Kong model. The elbow is a hinge joint. There's swivels and sleeve joints in the shoulder so that you have a lot of different range of motion. There it is. Go together like that. And that'll be on a little wire, probably attached to the actual skull at the bottom. If you wanted to make him look angry, see, you can do something like this. That would be done, of course, a frame at a time. Those adjustments might be as many as 12 or 15 poses broken down into very small movements. I don't think anyone's expecting it to look exactly real, 100%. If there's a certain amount of the jerkiness that the original King Kong had, that may be part of the character of seeing him again. He has certainly a simian quality, but it's kind of a Hollywood gorilla, and he has his own look.
What shot are we set up for now, Sean?
This is KK4A.
Kong is moved by hand, but the camera is controlled by a computer.
And it's going to actually come right between his head and his arm, right here, just fly right through that. A motion control camera system is basically a computer-controlled camera. It's a real camera, it shoots real film, but it's controlled by a computer to do things that we can't do with human operators in real time. Probably the most important thing that it does is that it always does the same move the same way over and over again. That's the one.
We keep him a lot more centered in that one.
Yeah, that's better. Pass-by is a lot better.
Yeah.
Go right by his hand. And it's still drifting a little bit too much. We should probably work on that a little bit more. But the dip is good. It feels very aeronautic. Good pass-by. Bill, look at this right here. We're drifting off Kong, and then we kind of come back to him. It's okay to drift a little bit, but he's going too far, and I think we're going to lose his attention, and he might strobe on the big screen. So the amount of just, the frequency is good, but just the amount that it's actually going back and forth, that should be reduced.
So we'll adjust our pan channel.
Yeah. A miniature like this is almost always photographed in smoke, and you might wonder, why do we need to smoke up a stage to film this miniature? And the answer is that you naturally see aerial perspective in real large objects like a cityscape. And it's not smoke as much as it's just the atmosphere breaking up the light that's hitting the buildings. And the way we recreate that in miniature is to smoke the stage. So we have a bank of smokers that are regulated by a computer controlling system that keep the smoke level at an exact level that we can always match when we go from shot to shot. The nearest thing when you look at a cityscape is maybe 50 or 100 feet away. And when lenses are focused that far away, everything is sharp. Now, that's not true when you shoot a miniature, because we get very close to some of the pieces here. Some of them pass within just a fraction of an inch of the lens, and we have to make sure that it still looks sharp, because something that big in the real world would look that sharp.
Thank you.
We allow the lens to stop down to the minimum aperture, and the more the lens is stopped down, the deeper the focus. And the computer allows the camera to move very slowly, but in a way that when it's projected on film, looks like it has a lot of speed and reality to it.
What happens if he lands here?
He's out of focus.
Ooh, honey.
Yeah, we've got 6 inches.
It's kind of painstaking. I mean, the exposure time per frame is 8 to 12 seconds. The reset time between each frame can be up to 10, 15 minutes, sometimes depending. We would sit in the control booth and take bets on how many shots we were going to be, how many frames we'd be able to get this hour. Yes. We'd take the frame, move the ladders back in. David would climb up, make ever so small a incremental move on part of Kong.
It's probably about as much as you did.
Pull all that back out, check the smoke level, make sure it looked right on the video monitor, and take the second frame. You're shooting a shot that on screen is going to be 8 seconds long, and you're on a stage for 26 hours in order to get that shot. It's kind of like you're living in a time warp.
David started to take on Kong personality and started to eat a lot of bananas.
He sort of is Kong. He sort of becomes him, understands his motions, and through his hands just imparts that motion to the puppet, one frame at a time. It's definitely an art form.
I would say that it's an awful lot of work, and it's sort of a big drain on your nervous energy, because there's a kind of, I think, a kind of paranoia that hangs over the whole process, because you're in a time-lapse world and you don't want anything to go wrong over a period of many hours or even days. But when the film comes back, and if it's successful and you can watch it in the moviola or on the screen, it's very satisfying, and I think it makes everything else worthwhile.
Cut, please.
Great. Real nice.
Very good, ladies and gentlemen. There's some claps, Sam. Okay.
I think we need to look at it cut in. I think I might cut the end of it a little short. He seems to die in the very, very last moment. What's interesting is the motions are slowed down, but it gives it a sense of great mass.
Yeah.
Which has surprised me. I wouldn't have suggested that originally. I would have thought I unlocked so much into seeing the original Kong animation where he does like this, but actually the fact that it's boom, boom, and it's like this, it makes it big.
Yeah.
That helps.
I thought so too.
That was a nice
It
interpretation.
also makes it a little smoother.
It's very smooth.
Of course, that
Yeah,
otherwise
it's smooth.
it'd be very stroby at that old speed.
Yeah, it's very smooth animation. And what made you move the toes?
This shot?
Yeah, his toes were like the end.
Dancing toes.
Is he nervous?
I don't know, they might
It's one
have.
of David's trademarks, but he doesn't think people usually know this.
Do we have two bullhorns?
Back in the life-sized world, director Ben Burtt has taken over a block of downtown San Francisco.
I'm gonna get up. Come on up here, Ben. Okay.
Instead of a puppet, Ben's got to control the movements of 100 extras.
Let's get Caroline. And where's the rest of... Oh, you're saving it? You already have a scenario? They've given you a scenario? You're saving the blind man? Okay, well, that's a good humanistic thing to do. Okay. I think what drew me into movie making as a child and then a teenager was the fact that I could do the ultimate make-believe. I could be a superhero, or my friends could be superheroes, or we could do super feats, this sort of thing. very first film I ever did involved army men falling from buildings, and I did it with little dolls. And that developed into an interest in filmmaking in general, and storytelling and editing. You four, why don't you go and man those machine guns, okay? Everybody, and you gotta look tough. Grit your teeth.
You gotta look tough.
You look tough, grit your teeth.
We don't look tough?
Oh, well, you look pretty tough, but you can't smile.
Remember that the gorilla's on top of that building.
Stretch them out further. Stretch them out further. You're trying to make things look as real as possible. You're trying to create an illusion for the audience that they'll accept. Okay, it's good. The vehicles need to come in a little later.
A little later.
A little later. I mean, so the people are moving a little more. Now you're doing it with puppets and paper and cardboard and lights and, you know, and a few tanks and that sort of stuff, a few biplanes. Filming aircraft is always a bit hair-raising. Where we did lots of scenes of them diving right at us. Plane would come right out of the sky and come down close to camera, sometimes really just a few feet away. A pilot in a biplane like that really can't see over the front of the plane. And we would talk on the radio and tell them how low they were coming and tell them when to pull up. It's a thrill once it's over and you realize you've survived it and there was no mishap.
I think we're going to go do this. I still want to go left, right to left.
To film the pilot's point of view, Second Unit Aerials Director Lope Yap has mounted the giant IMAX camera on the front of a helicopter. A much smoother ride than a biplane.
Straight right down like we did this morning. Straight right
To get the shot, the crew had to wait out a full week of bad weather.
Follow them across the Bay Bridge.
That was very frustrating, sitting and waiting for the weather to calm. And when we finally, the first time out, we actually shot for 2 weekends. I did get in the helicopter and they did take me out across the bay and it was quite thrilling, actually. It was a great moment.
Again? Are you serious? People have asked me what a producer does, and I kind of have this huge puzzle I get to put together. And that's the part that I really like, just trying to figure out how to make it all work. I got a call from David Allen, the first casting of the fur to be stretched around the puppet. The rubber hadn't set properly and was pulling apart like bubble gum. And so we had a setback in schedule a couple of days because of that. And you learn something every time you do a job, especially in effects work.
There's basically 2 steps when it comes to doing visual effects. Step 1 is called too soon to tell, and step 2 is called too late to do anything about it.
That was great.
The film process is always filled with adventures. Certain things are just plain fun, like getting on top of a fire truck and roaring through the streets of San Francisco.
Hey, let's try to catch up with those.
You know, it's nice you have a police escort. You know you can go as fast as you want through all the intersections and go out across the bridge with the winds, you know, streaming through your hair. That's a lot of fun.
Accelerate away. Go ahead, Kevin and Janet, keep on going. That's it.
Then I think we got it. I mean, that was great.
That was great.
I mean, it's just so colorified. I mean, it's a little strange because there's no other vehicles, but we're in this idealized comic book world.
That's right. Okay.
Wonderful, everybody.
That was great.
That was great.
Whoa!
I can see a few chunks taken out of that ceiling.
Yeah.
From the last IMAX camera.
In the final sequence, Ben Burtt's ride through San Francisco will take just 15 seconds of screen time. But where's the fire? It's being filmed very carefully behind an 11-foot-high cutout of the model building. It's dangerous. Don't try this at home. The fire will be added onto the Kong footage with an amazing tool that makes anything seem possible on screen: the optical printer. The left side of the optical printer is a projector. Here, the original building footage and the film of the fire are lined up, so the fire appears at just the right time, at just the right place. When everything's set, the projector's turned on. The film of the building and the film of the fire run together. The combined image is projected directly to the right side of the optical printer, where a movie camera records the finished product on a single strip of film.
The work we do has to be absolutely perfect because on a 5-story high screen, you can see the slightest flaw. So we're dealing with a speck of dust that is invisible to the eye, can be the size of a basketball up on screen. So.
In addition to his towering inferno, Jay is giving the biplane pilots some ammunition for their battle with Kong.
We're going to be adding tracer fire to the shot of Kong climbing the building. As the biplanes swoop in, we want to see bullets shooting from the planes at Kong, and of course we can't do that practically out in San Francisco, so we have to add that through animation. We will be tracing where Kong is frame by frame, creating animated artwork of the tracer fire from one frame to the next. I had all sorts of little magic kits when I was a kid, and fascinated that you could create the illusion that something was happening that really wasn't. It was just sleight of hand or a little gimmick that made it look as though something was happening that really wasn't. And that's really the extension of what goes on in visual effects. We're taking pencils and pushing them on paper and creating artwork, and you end up believing that you're seeing bullets flying through the air when actually it's just artwork on a tabletop.
But even with the opticals complete, there's a key ingredient missing.
Great. Okay. Check 58 machine gun for Kong. To me, sound is one of the magic areas still unknown by the public. Most people think that what they hear in a film actually was the sound that may have happened on the set. In fact, almost all the sound is typically added later. We'll start out with some Kong roars, and these happen to be tiger roars because tigers have traditionally, ever since the very first Kong film in 1933, been the basis for all of our famous movie monsters, from Kong to Rodan, Godzilla to Jurassic Park. Pretty scary. You can lower it in pitch if you want. You can overlap and play several at once, and it really gets fierce. So that you can really build up this enormous sounding ape monster with it. And we also want to have some airplanes. And we went out and our sound man Dan Gleish recorded the actual biplanes in this film. They'll be shooting, or there's certainly a more distant perspective on it here when the planes are further away. Kong will have different vocalizations aside from just the tiger. Occasionally Kong will have a more plaintive sound, and this is a cougar that was recorded once, and we may use a sound like that for when Kong finally gets shot and begins to fall off the building. It's a slightly more pathetic sound, as if he's in pain. We can play all these together, and you begin to get a sensation for the entire sequence. Your film literally gets reborn with a soundtrack, and it becomes something different than anything it's been up to that point. And it's a magical moment being part of that birthing process, really. The sound person's job is a little easier than the special effects person's job is these days because people are not quite as aware of how their emotions are manipulated by sound. So I'm not going to say anything else about it. I'm not going to give away any secrets.
On the big screen, the Kong sequence will run about 3 minutes. But everyone involved hopes that the impression it makes will last a lot longer.
Well, I think the thing that Nova's trying to do with this film is that while we very much want people to understand the kind of science and technology behind this kind of filmmaking, I think we also want to pay tribute to the artists and to the filmmakers and the people who've really had visions for what films involving special effects can be. And if there's one kind of single message for the film, I think that we want an audience to understand that imagination is very important, vision is very important. And these people who have spent their time devoted to their craft are really trying to create images and create stories that all of us can enjoy.
You just pretend it looks this way, okay? Intensity is the key. I remember seeing a film when I was a child about how sound was done in a movie studio. And the film didn't explain technically how it happened or how electrons went through wires, but in seeing people at work doing creative things, I was inspired to go into the business and to find a way to apply myself and tell stories. And I would hope that some people seeing this film would also be inspired to go out, to further their education, to become experts in areas, be it science or in the arts, so that they have something to say and they have the skills to say it. And some future filmmakers and contributors to our society on a positive level can come out of this.
Run, action. Stop. Look up. picture. Please, no flashing, no talking unless asked to do so. All right, stand by, please, for picture. You're right here. Heather, Steve, quiet, please.
Take one.
Speed. Marker. And action.
Go!
And spotlight.